to our number 2 of Andy Goldstein Sports Bar with me, Goldstein, over there, the fun boy of London Tan, and we can welcome our bloggers to the studio. The host on West Ham TV, to my left, is Dan Lawless. Dan, hello, good evening.
Hey, Dan.
Good evening, guys. How's it going?
Good to see you. And on my right, the founder, not the host, the founder of Eagle. Is it eaglesbeak.com?
It is, yeah.
Jay Crame.
Thank
We've
you.
got you in because, of course, it's West Ham against Crystal Palace. It's live on Talksport on Saturday at 5:15. So we've got you in to talk about that, obviously, and, of course, the season. So, Dan, let me start with you. It must be a great time to be a West Ham fan at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we're really enjoying it. You know, after the Man City game, which I don't want to talk too much about, but, you know, and then
that could happen.
Yeah, it does. And you're thinking, all right, how's our season going to go from here? Obviously, last season in August we didn't do too well, and then we got the result against Brighton, and then, you know, you're thinking, what's happening? And then a few wins after that, everything's looking good, and we're at, fifth now? Been up there and thereabouts, so
it's probably, I mean, that's probably the best time to play Man City, isn't it? Because if you're going to beat them, it's probably going to be on the opening day of the season, and also if you lose, everyone loses City, so there's nothing wrong with that. But since then,
except Norwich, apparently, which really wow.
Yeah, that was a bit bizarre.
Yeah.
That was a bit bizarre. What's been the difference then this season? Is it one or two players coming in, one or two players raising their game and stepping up? Is it tactics? What is it? What's the difference?
Well, I mean, you know, we talked last season when we got Pellegrini and expectations, and for me it was all about stabilising, not being involved in relegation battle, and then getting to this season. So I think it's having a full season with our manager, with his philosophy, with a core of the team, and then taking that into this season now, and then adding some players like Sebastian Haller in there, and I think Mark Noble coming back in, he's really stepped up. Lanzini coming back, he's been our best player of the season. So having some of these players back, a few strengthening, but keeping that core, it's I think we're just kicking on and we're improving from last season.
Dan, West Ham are performing way above what I thought they would. And I said, and I'm still going to stand by it, I'm not convinced that Pellegrini is the manager to get you where West Ham want to be. Although I have to say, I'm starting to perhaps reconsider that. But your front three or four, in particular Haller, have been magnificent. And it's starting to come together. It's starting to look like a team that are understanding, certainly going forward, what you want to do. And the whole machine going back to front. Am I wrong about Pellegrini?
I think so. I think you're wrong. I think, look, he's a very experienced manager. He's done a great job pretty much everywhere he's gone, and now bringing that philosophy, like I said, having that full season with it, and having Husilos, who he brought in, which I do director of football, has been a star pick, because the players that he's gone out and scouted, and some of the gems that he's found, you know, we've got like Diop has been amazing, you know, your club, and he wanted to sign at one point for like 80 million we was talking about, you know, massive player, and having players like Sebastian Haller and attracting those quality or caliber of players, having a name like Pellegrini who's won big titles, that also attracts players. So it's all well and good getting the Eddie Howes and those things that are sort of like the flavour of the month. But if you can get a name, it does help attract that.
Let me ask you, sometimes when we talk about teams doing well, you can probably chuck Leicester into the equation now, but other big teams, if they've got really good players, I mean, Spurs is a prime example. You question whether or not those players are going to continue to be at the club if they carry on without winning trophies, right? And the reason I'm mentioning Spurs is for obvious reasons. They've got great players. Eriksen, of course, looks like he's going to go. A couple of defenders. Kane, obviously, is another that might be linked to a move away if Spurs continue to go without a trophy. Totally different setup at West Ham, because you're not really expected to win a trophy, but you've named a few big names there. You've got Declan Rice, of course, another player that's been linked to it. What do West Ham have to do this season to keep players like that happy to continue playing at the club?
I think probably get into that Europa League, or at least become very close, because I think what the players want to see is that there's a project. Because if you think about it, Spurs have been able to keep the likes of Kane and that for quite a while without winning a trophy. So, but because they've seen that there's a project there and there's improvement, and they've come closer and closer each time. So now I think it's just becoming a step too long. But if you can keep improving that season and keep challenging and keep trying to get better players in, I think they can see there's ambition.
And Haller, I think, is brilliant. He is going to be an absolute superstar, and I think West Ham, but I think you might struggle to hold on to, because he has got the lot to survive in the Premier League. Physically, technically, he's also got great, brilliant in the air. Certainly, Haller makes West Ham better.
He does.
As a centre forward. Whether he brings players in, his hold-up play, and you can see Lomachenko, Lanzini, all the players around him.
You wouldn't change your name on the FA Cup for anything. Clubs will go up and down, but that name will always be on the trophy.
We can't say we've won the FA. This is the thing, you know. Whatever.
Okay,
happens.
here's a question.
Would you swap places with them now, winning the FA Cup? That's
a $1 million question.
No,
isn't it?
Okay, would you play Championship football next season for an FA Cup win?
Would you swap? Would you be a Wigan fan right now?
No. I don't mean it. Would you take relegation and an FA Cup win this season?
Don't mention that word.
Would you?
No, I wouldn't. No, because the Premier League is a place to be. The Premier League is a place to be.
Hold on, Dan. I can see some teeth.
Go on, Dan.
Do you know what? I would take it.
Would you?
I mean, it's being in this stadium. I mean, I'm not going to harp on about the stadium, but just being there in the Championship is going to be a bit horrible. But I feel like we have the infrastructure where we would come back up, we'd do all right, and I think we did all right last time. But I want to see us win a trophy. I want to be at Wembley, and just that feeling, like, because I wasn't born last time we won it. It was 1998.
You were second tier side then, weren't you?
I do
get I think we were the last team to win it.
That's right.
Second tier side, so
we were so close a few years ago, but
who beat you?
Just
Who beat you?
I can't remember this
after the Dance of Doom from Pardew.
Oh, don't.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty way you lost, wasn't it?
That's what the dance does. We have, as I mentioned, we've got to my left Dan from West Ham TV, the host of West Ham TV. How long have you been on that for, Dan?
Oh, I think about 4 years now. Yeah.
And is it the same kind of setup as, say, for instance, Arsenal Fan TV, which is, I think, fair to say, the most known of the fan channels?
Yeah, I mean, we have some similar strands. I mean, might be a different tone, but we interview fans after the game. We do previews, match reviews, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it's similar, but like a West Ham feel to it.
Okay. And is that your normal job? Do you have other jobs, or is that what you do?
No, it's one of the things I do.
Okay, what else do you do? This sounds good.
Yes. It's not that exciting.
What else do you do? Dabbling?
Yeah. I'm an assessor, so I go into, like, apprentices' jobs, whether it's the BBC or places like that, and make sure they can do their job, you know.
What do you mean, make sure they can do it? Do you stand behind them and go, no, it's no good?
Yeah, okay, that's not good enough. No, they have the list of standards, and I've got to check sure they meet the standards, you know.
Well, does Jay meet the standards?
What's that? What?
Well, not there, look there.
What are you talking about?
That's a mark against him right there.
What standard are you talking about?
Yeah, no, that's a mark down there, Jack.
And do you have a lot of access from the club? Are they quite friendly towards both of you?
Yeah, not so much with us, because obviously it's been storied about what's been going on with West Ham and the board and all of that, and we're quite vocal, and the people we interview are quite vocal. So
That's the downside of speaking your mind.
Yeah, so it's that thing we have to weigh up. Do you want access, or do you want freedom of speech? You know, and we've gone freedom of speech.
But often it's within the club's interest to have a relationship with you guys, not necessarily to kind of, in some ways, influence what you're saying, but it's good to have that rapport, so that the club, because there are, I mean, mostly some of these fanzines and websites, and certainly the TV, they're quite influential. So I just wonder, has there been any contact at all?
We've been a part of like meetings when everything was going wrong, and Karen Brady got loads of like fan sites and stuff in to try and help sort of talk about the direction and what they should be doing and things like that. But no access, we're not going to press conferences like some channels and things like that. They sort of keep us at a distance.
Staying with West Ham for a moment, let's talk stadium. Where are you at with that now as West Ham fans? Do you like it? Are you pleased with it?
I think we're over it. I think we're over it. I think we're just kind of sort of getting on with it now, and we're sort of accepting. There's this sort of like unspoken thing of what's going on. Everyone's expecting after we've been there for 5 years that the board will sell up and we'll get some new owners in. And I think at some point the LLDC, who own the stadium, they'll want to get rid of it, because they've just reported like £25 million loss on the stadium again. So one day we'll own it, we'll make it better as best as we can, and until then we just got to get on with it.
Okay. And I want to ask you about your manager, Roy Hodgson. I did a feeble attempt of an impression of him. Actually, it's quite good. In fact, it's very, very good.
I thought he was here.
Are you happy with him? Because I see him sometimes in post-match interviews, and I think...
You'd have me tonight. Don't start giving it all that. You'd swap in a heartbeat. You'd swap Roy Hodgson.
No,
you would. Right now, you would, mate. Mate, he spanked you at Old Trafford.
Pellegrini, though, surely, isn't it?
Both of them.
It's a pensioners' day out on Saturday, isn't it?
Yeah. Right, let's talk about the game then. It's part of Game Down. Talksport kicks off 5:30. Full live commentary, West Ham against Palace. I'll ask you, Dan, what will the score be? How will the match go?
Do you know what? Usually I try and sort of be sort of reserved and not to maybe look a fool on match day and stuff like that. You don't want to look like you're wrong, but no, I feel very confident. I can come out because we've got a good record against them at home. I can come out and say with my chest, I think we'll win. I think there'll be a lot of goals in it. I think it'll be 3-2. I think 3-2. There's usually a lot of goals in it.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean,
it's Palace.
It's time.
Yeah, no.
Okay, you're saying 3-2.
Yeah.
Jay?
I'm going to go for. I think there'll be goals in it. Fabianski, I think, is a big loss to West Ham after with his injury. I think it's going to be a 2-2.
Okay. I don't think I've ever had a fan in here that said their team's going to get anything other than at least a point. Wouldn't it be nice if one day we had a fan go, well, nothing, we'll probably get done 5-0. It's never going to happen, though, is it? Let's not get United fan in with Newcastle, all right? Let's not do that. Boys, thanks so much for coming in. A real pleasure as always. We've got the back pages to wrap later on. Tomorrow's tonight with me and him right after this.